Hello and welcome to Tinto Yaps, that time of the week where I have a look at all the things that developers have said over the past week, all the comments that they've left in the comment sections of their various Tinto talks, and I pick out the juicy things for you to glean to your pleasure, because that is kind of what you're into. You yearn for the informations, and I am your enabler. And if you wish to have me continue to enable you in your addiction to the apps, then why don't you click the subscribe button? Maybe leave a like on the video, maybe leave a comment down below, and all of that kind of stuff. It helps me, and you stay informed. It's a win-win. Let's get into today's video. Of course, we have the North American Tinto map, which, as you can see on the screen, is rather empty, with only 9 tags playable at the start of the game. And this has caused quite a bit of, I'd say controversy is a very strong word, but there is quite a lot of disagreement. Whether this is enough tags, whether this is too many tags, I've seen some people even claim. Generally, the natives in EU4 turned out to be rather annoying as a colonizer to deal with, far more annoying than maybe they should be. And the ability for a native to have this continent-wide coalition was a little bit ahistorical. People didn't like that, so there are some people who are perfectly happy with having this few tags. And that is a valid, I think, point of view to have. There are some people who think that it is ridiculous that there are this few, and have pointed out quite a few elements where there should be more tags. Even there should be more Societies of Pops. A lot of people calling for Societies of Pops to be made playable even in a terrible state. Maybe have it turned on by a game option, something along those lines. But anyway, we're going to get into that. But first, as always, we were going to start with the Saturday building, which is, of course, here the hospital. It's run by the clergy, and it is available from the Age of Traditions. We can see that right here. Available to be built from the Age of Traditions, so the start of the game. And I believe you might want to be building these from the start of the game, because I don't know about you, but this plague resistance seems kind of interesting, and maybe you're going to want that. I've got a gut feeling that, you know, plague resistance is going to be helping out with the plague of the, I don't know, bubonic variety, pretty close to the start of the game. So if you would like to metagame it a little bit, I would say this would be the building that you want to be spamming out as hard as possible in the very start of the game. The production method, you require some fiber crops, you require metalwork, paper, books, medicaments, and also mercury. It takes 360 days to build, it costs 200 gold to build, and the construction requirements are masonry, glass, and lumber. The history of the hospital is old, as many civilizations had their own version of an institution which houses the sick. During the medieval period, the hospital evolved further, as it now focuses additionally to the healthcare and recovery of its patients. Obviously, you can only build them in towns and cities, and you do require a research, an advancement to unlock it, which is what this symbol is, and I guess it is, it might be an advancement that people start with, but if you don't start with it, then you might want to try and research it early. There's a couple of comments down here as well. Is there some meaning behind the benefits in location being in a gold star instead of silver star as usual? So Kumeathor seeing GUI changes, and it's literally just GUI changes for the placeholder icon. Gold star here used to be silver. I guess that doesn't mean anything. The icon after the pops, and it shows the Age of Tradition, and that ends in May 1337, so you should have it before the Black Death. Yes, you can build it from the start, but the town or city needs to have a certain amount of development. So if you don't have any towns or cities at a certain development, you are not going to be able to build this. Though I will say, it would be nice if on here, you know, the requirements for construction, for example, show development of number. If that is going to be a requirement that you need to have a certain development, then it should go in the requirements area. I think that's fairly reasonable. Now, that's that out of the way. Let us have a talk. Let's go and talk about the changes to the Great Power System. Let's do that one first, and we'll go to the maps afterwards. Blue Potato here. How the hell did the Ashikaga Shogunate go up in rank? And this is something that people were talking about when the original Tinto talks about great powers came out, that the Ashikaga Shogunate probably shouldn't be a great power because their power was kind of just relegated to their own islands. And Johan in that thread said, yes, I would like them to not be a part of the Great Powers list, and maybe they would go down in Great Powers list as soon as the changes were made to how much impact subjects had. Well, balance changes dramatically every day, and they, in fact, went up in rank. Though it does not look like that's something that Johan wants to have stick around. A bit of glazing of the community here, and feedback, which is nice, of course. I am a big fan of community feedback and the action that is taken based on that. And I see the community has impact for the game, that it's going to be played by the community, and that's how it should be. There's a couple more comments to that effect as well. Glad to see ranks and hegemons has been improved, though. Thank you. More like thanks to the community for good suggestions. Great. Fantastic. Now this is what the people asked for. I love it, and I still cannot believe our suggestions were implemented to such an extent that the entire mechanic was remade from scratch. Unheckin' believable in this day and age. Thank you. We do have an awesome community, though. I mean, bit of community glazing has never been a bad thing. We love to see it. We do, in fact, love to see it. But moving on, though. Who are the holders of each hegemony at the start of the game? No one. It's not unlocked until a later age. This is something that I read in the dev diary on Wednesday, and I kind of think it may have went over my head because I was saying that basically Yuan was going to be it. They're not. Yuan won't be the hegemon at the start of the game because hegemons are only unlocked in the Age of Discovery, if I remember rightly, which is after the Age of Renaissance. So we're not going to be seeing them for a while. At least let me just double check. Yes, I was correct. When the Age of Discovery starts is when we get the hegemonies, and, well, the Age of Discovery is in 1437 would be the Age of Renaissance ending, and then the Age of Discovery will be ending in 57. So yeah, we're going to be basically... That ends in 1337, ends in 1437, ends in 1537, so Age of Discovery is 1437. Okay, just had to math that out in my head. It would be nice if they said starts, not ends, but whatever. We're going to be Hegemony is going to start 100 years into the start of the game. And that is probably going to be fine. We're probably not going to see Yuan in most campaigns in 100 years' time, which is kind of interesting, as they are by far the largest tag on the map. And yeah, it would be nice to see who would be hegemons if hegemons were unlocked at the start of the game. And obviously, it would be Yuan for probably all of them, but it'll be still interesting to see. But you know, they're not unlocked for 100 years, so that is something I need to put to rest, put to bed, and stop making mistakes on. I say to myself. Anyway, moving on. Is there an accounting to quality over quantity? What if your army is 100,000, is much stronger than the hegemons of 200,000? It's a hard one to specify. I think this is going to be less of an issue than we have in EU4, as modifier stacking is really a bigger deal in EU4 than it looks like it will be in EU5. So somebody with an army of 200,000 to your 100,000 is maybe not twice as strong, but I don't think you're going to be able to overcome that deficit with quality alone in most cases. Maybe in the case of you having a lot of technological advancements over them, maybe they focused purely on eco and somehow just have a huge army regardless. I don't know. And obviously I haven't played the game yet, so I can't know. But I would hazard a guess that it's going to be hard, if not impossible, to have a stronger army when you are outnumbered 2-1. At this scale, of course. But anyway, moving on. Overall, great changes. I'm not entirely sold on military hegemon, only depending on biggest army. Shouldn't the quality of the army have something to say? Yuan agrees, and whether that comes in the form of changes, we don't know. But one thing we could potentially see is something like army strength that we have in the Skanderbeg online tool. Now, if you are unaware, Skanderbeg is a tool used quite heavily by multiplayer groups and basically gives you a bunch of information about the various countries in the game. in a multiplayer game. So one of the things that it does, if I go onto the military metrics tab, is when it loads, eventually, probably should have started there, when I started this, please load. Nice. There we go. Sorry, Skanderbeg's been having some issues for a little while. But what we have is the ability for Skanderbeg to look at all the different stats that your army has, how large it is, how many modifiers it has, and basically converts all that into things like effective discipline. If you're converting morale into discipline or converting infantry combat ability into discipline, and it will give you some kind of ranking here based on army strength, adjusted army strength, all this kind of stuff, and it goes into like basically what that means, but that's kind of irrelevant. But essentially, that could be a way to showcase who is the military hegemon by, instead of who has the largest army, convert all of those metrics into one military strength statistic, and that would be the one to determine it. And yeah, something like that really could work out well, and I do kind of hope that they go for something like that, because seeing overall strength being completely divorced from how large an army is a nice thing, because, you know, small powerful armies can beat big weak ones, and again, I don't think it's going to be as important as in EU4, but I do think it is still going to make some sort of impact. But anyway, does the diplomatic hegemon also give the -20 to opinion? As of course, every hegemon that we know is going to give a -20 to everyone's opinion of them for being a hegemon, and diplomatic one doesn't really make sense to give them that when their whole point of hegemony is that they're diplomatic, but their powers do compensate for that, I guess. But I don't know. I feel like maybe that one there doesn't really make that much sense. Maybe for being the diplomatic hegemon, you will also gain +20 opinion with everyone, so it kind of cancels out. That could be cool. But anyway. Glad the feedback is being heard, hell yes. However, I must say, I sincerely hope you'll include proper debuffs for large nations instead of making them constantly stronger. This is the win more thing that I was talking about on Wednesday that I do not want to see again, as much as we saw in EU4. In EU4, once you get rolling, nothing can ever stop you unless you want to stop yourself. So, Johan here saying, if you're in single player and you manage to become a great power with many hegemonies, you now have a -100 to -150 penalty with everyone. It's a significant way to get everyone else to attempt to stop you. It depends on whether the AI acts based on their opinion. Because while you having -200 opinion with everybody in the world is... Obviously, you can't do diplomacy with them, you can't make alliances with them. If you're far stronger than them all, it doesn't change anything, right? They're not going to band together to try and stop you unless you have, the aggressive expansion, in which case they'll make a coalition. But they're not going to make a grand coalition against you purely because a bunch of people have negative opinions of you. So unless that changes, unless that opinion, say there's 12 countries and they all have -100 opinion of you, so they're going to band together to attack you, regardless of whether there is, enough aggressive expansion for a coalition. That I would be totally fine with, and that would actually make this matter. But EU4 mechanic brain talking, irrelevant. This is irrelevant for EU4 brain. So yeah, maybe we're gonna get something new there. Maybe. Why did you choose a reduced food modifier for economic power? Seems a little particular. I think it means peculiar. I'm not quite sure of the connection. This is something I brought up as well, and I had quite a lot of comments basically trying to explain it to me. I don't think any of the explanations were supremely satisfying, nor do I think Johann's is here. Cheaper and longer military campaigns. You're the economic hegemon. Do you need cheaper campaigns? That's the kind of the point of view is that you're super rich, so maybe you're gonna throw a bit more money at the problem. I don't see food being the issue here. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think that should be your bonus. I really don't. I don't agree with it, and I can't see the rationale behind it. But I don't know. Maybe I will get even more comments on this video explaining why it should be, and I can disagree with those as well. Who knows? Excellent changes all around. If I had any balancing requests, I'd like to see tweaks to Ashikaga so that they're no longer a GP in 1337. Maybe this is a comment that I should have had earlier. But yeah, he's not happy with them being a GP at the start. Maybe changes again will be made so that they are not. Japan wasn't important outside of Japan at this time. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So hopefully maybe we will see Japan being kicked out of GP status at some point in the near future. So from my understanding for great powers, is it correct to guess that if Ashikaga magically disappeared, it wouldn't mean everyone would just move up a place and another country would pop up as a great power, but rather it would keep things as is, except with 4 great powers instead of 5? If it was 6, then yes, but the minimum amount of great powers is going to be 5. I don't think we've been told if there is a maximum. I wouldn't mind seeing what that is, if there is one. I could totally see it being higher than 8 that we have in EU4. 12 seems like a decent number. Even 16. I do want to keep it some kind of base 4. It just kind of seems to work out quite nicely. Yeah. I mean, I guess minimum of 5. That's not base 4, but whatever. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what that maximum is. Overall, changes are great. Slight issue with part of great powers losing great power status. You need to be, 20% stronger to keep it. But you will lose your great power status if you're not 20% higher, right? So if you have 120,000 troops, your enemy has 100,000 troops, and I know we went over military hegemon maybe getting a quality modifier, but this is the easiest one to talk about just now. So if you have 120,000, your enemy has, 99,000, you become the military hegemon. If your enemy then builds 2,000 more regiments, so they're 101,000, you are no longer 20% ahead, you will lose it. Even though you are still the strongest military power, you will lose it. Is how I understand this. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me, but this is how I understand this comment, and I do quite like that. Though I do think there are situations where becoming a hegemon is a little bit too easy, and I think I've got a comment coming up that talks about that, but we'll get onto it. There aren't any local great powers, only global ones. This is another thing that we had so many comments about. People trying to find ways to make great powers non-global. So, Jan saying they're only global ones. We ran into lots of problems with it not being possible to determine what is local that you look at. And yeah, there was quite a few comments basically hammering home that they wanted local great powers. And they were basically all shut down because some of them were quite silly and some of them were just not feasible. How about it being based on visibility? Visibility for who? There are 1,500 countries. Which one is the visibility determining? Should you be a great power according to Ulm, Corsica, or 100 other countries? Someone saying, oh, that shouldn't be based on, areas. How are you a power in an area? Is France a power in Genoa? Is Venice a power in Genoa? Is the Ottomans Genoa, Aragon? How and why? So this is also something that won't work. How about great powers of a region or continent? So what continent would you say the Ottoman Empire is in? Well, I guess Asia would be the correct one for right now. Maybe after they conquer the Balkans, then they can be a great power in Europe. But again, yeah, when you have nations that straddle continents, like Morocco, if they go into Iberia, what continent are they a great power in? Do they have great power status in both? And how does that shape out? Again, doesn't really work. And then finally, is it not possible to make it subcontinent based? Alright, which subcontinent is Austria in? Which subcontinent is Venice in? Is Venice in Italy or the Balkans or Greece? That kind of way, because they're kind of spread out. So, yeah, it makes sense, in my opinion, that great powers have to be global. And at the end of the day, the European powers of 1337, they knew China existed. They may not have had absolute knowledge of everything Chinese related, but the existence of a China is not a surprise to them. Hell, the Romans knew that China existed. The Chinese knew that Rome existed. It is not... The terra incognita that we have in EU4 isn't a, oh, I'm finally discovering this whole continent over here that I did not know existed. It's more a case of I'm now getting a understanding of the political shape of this area. Maybe Terra Incognita could have a vague shape of the continents that then gets, when that goes away, then you actually see what it looks like. That would be nice, but in any case, that is enough for the Tinto talks on great powers and all of that. If you have any comments about this, if I've missed any interesting comments that you think should have been in this section, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. But for now, we are going to be moving on back to not this, but this. We're moving on to the North American Tinto maps, which, again, a lot of controversy involved in this thread. So, to start with, EU4 also has the achievement. Is this what I'm actually looking at? It is not. Here it is. Oh boy! Some people are going to be displeased with the paucity of settled countries this week. The Sea Lanes map showed a lot more settled countries. What made you guys change your mind? That was a very early design when they didn't even have societies of pops yet implemented, and that was pending a first review pass, and after the Tinto maps, we'll receive a second. So we can go and actually have a look at what that looks like. I believe it was in this exploration map. I think it was actually a comment down here. Let's try and find that. I believe this is the map that they were talking about, and while you can't really make out countries, in a way, this area down here, you do see the outlines of a lot of different things, and maybe these outlines are what people are talking about. And I can zoom in a little bit, but of course it flies off the end of your screen, so maybe I can bring it back up. This is maybe what people are talking about. You can see the darker lines around places, and maybe these are what could have been countries, but that is an early Tinto maps. That is not what the game currently looks like. That was before societies of pops were in, and I guess probably the same is true in Africa as well. But yeah, we're gonna get a more appropriate and more interesting, not interesting, a more current look, obviously, with this map that was released on Friday, and also we're getting the one for Central America soon as well. But yeah, that's what people are talking about here. If anything, Cahokia was already in pretty significant decline by now, while some other sites like Moodaville and Etowah were at their peak. Would they not be better choices for settled states? Any sources of information for other cultures would be helpful, and yes, we'd like to portray the decline of Cahokia on a certain way, although it would be tricky without proper playable societies of pops mechanics. So maybe Moundville and Etowah may be coming? Who knows? Maybe, potentially. A couple of other comments here. All the wild game makes me wonder if you plan on having really dynamic RGOs. Yes. This is something that is very new, very interesting, and kind of just thrown out there, and I think people haven't really seen this comment yet. Dynamic RGOs. Let's open up the map that they've obviously shown here. This is the RGO map, and as far as I understood it, this was the map. Of course, when you have colonization coming in, you have the Columbian Exchange, for example, then a lot of things would be changing. But I was under the impression that this would generally be, other than through colonialism and and through Columbian Exchange, this would be the final map of the RGOs. But there's a little bit more dynamism, unless this is just talking about the Columbian Exchange and some RGOs changing. And even then, I wasn't thinking that would be called dynamic, but maybe, I don't know. If the gold available in the areas won't be discoverable in the game, and very likely they won't have it by release, so I don't know what to think about this. They plan on having dynamic RGOs, but not on release. In that case, how soon after? Is it planned to be a big patch, or what is the story here? This is a huge comment that I think definitely got overlooked a bit. Dynamic RGOs coming to the Americas through colonialism? Question mark? I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts about it. So feel free to leave those in the comment section below, because I'll be very interested to read it. And is there an event or similar for the emergence of some native countries that formed out of the societies of pops during the time period, like the Iroquois Haudenosaunee? Not yet. I hope this is going to change. I do want, even if we don't have them on the map at the very start of the game, certainly some of these became settled countries by, 1492 or later, 1500s, when the Europeans started having contact with them. They may not be settled countries by the game's standards in 1337, but by 1500, I'd say quite a few of them would be. So the ability for a society of pops to establish itself as an established country, as a settled country, as a country, I do hope that that's going to be possible. It's not in yet, but again, this game isn't finished development when it comes out, But moving on, I saw that already. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but Texas with only one location looks goofy. It is the Lone Star State, so yes, tiny Texas will not be a thing forever. They are going to fix that. I'll be interested to see how that does get fixed, because as funny as this is, yeah, that should probably not be the case, because this is supposed to be an area, or and it's not big enough. It's like province sized. What's the stance on the raw materials that existed like cotton and tobacco but weren't widely produced like in later plantation economies? Should they still be present to the same extent they were during the later colonial times? And they'll reveal that in due time. I guess the colonial nations Tinto talks that we'll get at some point eventually, potentially, maybe? Who knows? Will settled pops gameplay overlap somehow? I'd imagine it'd be pretty boring to play as Cahokia, being the only settled country in a vast area until you can interact with all the societies of pops. It would be possible to have interactions, although it won't have the level of depth we'd like until societies of pops receive proper, full mechanics. So I think Cahokia will be a pretty boring game until that happens. But hey, if that is what you're interested in, I do remember having a comment saying that they're excited to play as Cahokia. Maybe they're in the same area of the US. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But yeah, I don't know. It won't have a whole lot of depth. So play at your own peril, I guess. How can we suggest raw materials if we don't know the raw materials should be present to their colonial extent, which is pretty much what you post in the op, with so much tobacco and cotton on the East Coast, or to their actual 1337 extent. So they did some cleanup on the very early design, which had colonial goods, but apparently some were overlooked. So the map of goods that they're asking for feedback on, it's kind of hard to get feedback, and yeah. To be entirely clear, what we want on the setup is the raw materials present and exploitable in 1337, while those goods introduced post-Columbian exchange will appear in the region in a different way, which will be dynamic, not static. On a side note regarding minerals, we usually put in the map those exploited during the game's time frame, 1337 to 1837. So, this is a little bit of news. It's not something that is completely unheard of, right? Johan has said that the game will run about 500 years. And, 1337 plus 500, 1837. But this is the first confirmation of that being the end date, because it could be that, the game ends in 1836 to coincide with the start date of the Victoria franchise, whichever Victoria game you wish to play. But it ending specifically in 1837 is news. So, hey, big scoop. Big scoop right there. And I'm going to give you an information sign. Will the locations be renamed once colonial powers are there? Yes, and they also welcome suggestions regarding that. So if you have some colonial names that you would like to imprint upon the game, then get those in the comment section here. Might be a stupid question regarding the sea lanes, but to me, without any knowledge, it seems weird that New York is so cut off from and to Bermuda. It seems not integrated. I would agree with this. There was a different thread in the Tinto talks, basically talking about where sea lanes could be. It was I disagreed heavily with a lot of things that the poster said, but in one of the comments, it was basically a map showing the various sea lanes that were being used by people of this time period, or not 1337, but of colonial times. And one of the main colonial routes was from Bermuda to New York, which is right here. So a sea lane going up this way probably would be quite preferable. I suppose it's not too bad because you can from Bermuda you go here, here, then here, here, here. Yeah, I mean it's not great, but it's not the worst thing in the world. But I think it would be nice to have a connection going up this way. But anyway, moving on. Can we provide more zoomed maps, photos of the Great Basin in the Rockies area? So we have these here. I don't know what you can make out from there, but lots of various names of areas. Red Rock and Bridger, Randolph, Sweetwater. I'm sure some of these will be very recognizable to some people. And then more here as well. Very cool indeed. Loving this. Moving on, though. What are your standards for what makes good natural harbors in North America? If you're using the same standard as Europe, there won't be any black on the east coast. Although I know from other Tinto maps they use different standards for different areas. So the current Spanish-centric standards, which they're trying to make as viable as possible in the rest of the world. So minus 25 is cliffs, so south of Chile, or Chile. You don't want to build a harbor where there's just a freaking wall of cliffs. Flat coast at 0, that's what Barcelona has. 25 would be a bay, Palma de Mallorca. 50 would be a river port like Sevilla. 75 would be a deep bay like San Sebastian. And then 100 would be a closed or very defensible estuary like Ferrol. Very cool. Making an account just to say that Savannah, Georgia should be a mid-tier natural harbor. And why is Pensacola not a harbor? I don't remember who wrote it, but I remember in my own comment section somebody commenting on Savannah needing to be a good natural harbor. And yep, they've just improved those harbors. Good to see. If you have any other harbors that need to be, improved, to say you're living by one of these places and gosh, there's a deep water port here and it's all natural and it was just fantastic. But Paradox, they've made it black on their screen. Like, what the hell's going on? Leave it in the comments. They'll read it and they'll be able to improve it if they are informed. So yeah, something like this. A little bit concerned about the gameplay if you decide to play as Cahokia. Is there enough ways to interact with the SOPs? And it's a big challenge for them at the moment. That's why they're being extra cautious with everything Society of Pop related. Maybe I should have had this comment earlier with the other one. Whatever, my bad. It doesn't look like playing as these natives would be very interesting. I'm sure somebody will find it to be their absolute best experience, but I don't think it's going to be for me, and I don't think it's going to be very popular in the grand scheme of things. Even if Societies of Pops become in depth, I still feel like that's just going to be the case. Are there mechanics existing or planned to represent the decline of Cahokia and related cities, or will their European player run into thriving mound cities every game? They have a design in mind, but again, they're not sure if that will be in the release version of the game. So there's a lot of stuff that is still going to be happening with natives after the release of the game, it seems. I do think this does kind of indicate that release isn't terribly far away. Because if, say, there was 2 years until release, then I would say there'd probably be enough time to have all of these things that they've got plans for, designs in mind, to be hashed out and put in. But if they have a design in mind, but they're not sure if it's going to be in for the release version, it kind of feels like release version, it's not that far away, maybe. Let me know your thoughts on that. When do you think the game is going to be released? Are potatoes not a trade good? If not, they probably should be. They are, and there are. There's probably some more to the north. There's a lot of potato in South America that we'll see in 3 weeks. And speaking of in 3 weeks, not that one. Will the Central American Tinto map include the Caribbean? Yes, it will. There is, of course, a holiday. So the next Tinto maps will be on the 13th of December. We're not getting one next week. But there will be the Russia Tinto map word. I'm failing to word right now. They'll go back over and redo Russia, and we'll share everything that's happened with that. And that's coming out on, I believe, the 9th. So looking forward to that. But that is it that I have for you today. That is it for all of the Tinto yapping. If there's anything I missed, again, feel free to let me know. And I will maybe put that in the next video that I do. But my questions to you, again, same as last time. Is this enough? Do you agree with the responses and the reasons why they have decided to have so few? And Great Powers, the update, the rework. What do you think of that? I'll leave those questions to you, and I will see you on Wednesday for another Tinto Talks. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and bye-bye.